Max Olson, ESPN.com, joins us right after his old trusted colleague, Sam Kahn, both of them being kind enough to take time out of the portal today to jump on the show for a few minutes. And Max, you and Pete Demel did some really good work on the Nico story and talking about the market for him, which it makes it seem like even more crazy that you would do what he did, seeing as he took a pay cut to go to UCLA, which I know is not 100% done yet, but likely.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking back on this because a couple weeks ago, my colleague Atten Rittenberg did a piece that was breaking down the top 15 returning quarterbacks in college football, and he did that based on talking to coaches. And Nico was 8th in that. I mean, we're just a few weeks removed from kind of talking about Nico as a guy that could potentially be a top 10 quarterback in the country this year. And, really all of the fallout of last week and of skipping practice and of the money demands from his camp and things like that have created a situation now where, clearly there was not an obvious backup plan if they left Tennessee. And, this is just the worst possible time to go in the portal and have all this leverage to go get a great deal. I think if Nico had been in the portal at the start of January, like they thought about doing at that time, I think, fresh off a playoff game, he would have had some great options and would have had a chance to make a lot of money. But right now, as we're seeing, it's UCLA, and there's not many others lining up here trying to pick him up. Partly just because you're coming out of spring practice, you've already committed to somebody, and partly just kind of the concern of what are we bringing into the locker room here. So yeah, fascinating dilemma here for that camp.
Max, what kind of tempo has been set? We've seen the hundreds, if not the thousands of names that have entered from all different levels, more than usual, less than usual. How does it kind of compare for somebody who's been tracking the portal for a while?
What's up? We outside. Having fun doing what I want, cause you know the sun beating down kinda like a drum. Look how I do it. Look how I do it. Another beautiful day out there, folks, so get out there, but don't forget your sunscreen, UV index. I just wanna have a good time. It's all on me, pleasure's mine. The weatherman said it's the right time, so we gon' get it jumping till the night time. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We outside. Yeah, I might just take a dive with it, feel alive with it, ride with it, cause I'm fly with it. Loud with the trouble, loud with the bass. No clouds in the way, smile on my face. Look how I do it. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me splash.
Yeah, it feels like more than usual. I would say not a ton of like superstars we've seen hit the portal. I think probably today with Steve Angeli going in, that's one that even those you don't see a ton. Sometimes guys will just stay and go through fall camp and compete, and even if they're not going to win the job, they're going to at least keep fighting for it. So that's that Notre Dame quarterback going in the portal, mild surprise there. But I think you're seeing a lot of Group of 5 players go in the portal and just trying to really them and their agents trying to move up to Power 4. You're seeing Power 4 teams move on from backups and guys that aren't going to help them this year, trying to clear room to take more. You're seeing hundreds of walk-ons go in the portal as you'd expect because these programs are having to cut back to 105. I think for the premium players that do go in, I think you're still talking about them having a chance to make $1 million or more. If they can get a bidding war going.
Now, I saw I tried to bookmark the tweet and I lost it when I refreshed. But are there guys jumping in the portal that have questions about eligibility still? Is that something that's going on right now?
I think there's every once in a while, there's some of these cases where a guy, wasn't sure if he's going to get an extra year, is still trying and fighting to get one, but then chose not to go pro and is kind of hoping that somebody can get them a waiver.
Okay.
You see a little bit of that. And I would say though, mostly it's like you're either seeing guys that have 1 year left and are just like kind of trying to cash in, or honestly, I think we're seeing a lot of coaching staffs just kind of very quickly kind of cutting the cord on guys that they don't think are going to work out. So like you're seeing a lot of redshirt freshmen and sophomore and like guys that have not played very much popping up in the portal. That kind of always happens every spring, but I think definitely more this year.
Max, what do you think about Steve Angeli and his future?
Yeah, I think that he's got some tape. He has that going for him. He was able to start against Oregon State in Notre Dame's bowl game at the end of 2023, and they blew out Oregon State, and he played well in that game. He's a guy that has appeared in games. He's been able to play in some blowouts, and certainly had that pretty memorable moment into the first half there when Penn State's up 10-0 on them, and they're needing to spark a comeback, and he leads a scoring drive at the end of the half to cut it to 10-3, showed that they had a lot of trust in him, and they let him throw the ball on third downs. He converted 3 third downs. So I think teams that are like pretty on the fence about what they've got, I think will be interested. You're certainly seeing some movement right now. I think it's clear North Carolina has their plan figured out with Gio Lopez. Unclear what Tennessee's plan is going to be here, but I think you're still seeing some teams like Purdue that are out there who Maryland maybe that have less established options who I imagine are going to pick up the phone.
I saw in one of the updates that you had another offensive lineman visiting Texas Tech, Tyrell Green from Eastern Kentucky. I guess Joey. Right. I thought the funds had run out at this point, man. Is this unlimited ATM in Lubbock? I'm just kidding, but any insight on the big man and kind of the interest there, or others that may be pursuing him as well?
Yeah, that's a younger lineman who showed some good things this year, and so I think that's for Texas Tech. It's kind of just a neat thing of they had a couple backup offensive linemen go in the portal yesterday, and part of that is as you'd expect. It's like, okay, you went into the portal and you signed these veteran offensive linemen to come in and compete for starting jobs and stuff. So you're going to have some depth guys that go in the portal at the end of spring here because they know they're kind of boxed out here and not going to have a chance to play very much this fall, and so Tech's having a little bit of attrition, and so they're going to be able to go into the portal and find guys like that could be backups and developmental players. I think for Tech, the big need still, we'll see what happens with Micah Hudson. But I think for Tech, the big need is still slot receiver. And so I think the good ones that hit the portal, I think there's no doubt that the Red Raiders will be very competitive for those guys.
Max, Hakeem Williams from FSU. Mike Norvell's only 5-star signee in his tenure is in the portal. He had 2 years that, he has some moments, but really, on the 23 team, was blocked behind several guys, and then on the 24 team, who knows who was good at wide receiver there. They were just so bad across the board. Do you think he'll have
and we all turn the games off too? I think that's the problem. We just what did he do last year? I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. No one knows. It's nebulous what happened there. So how do you think the market will play out for him, because he was a 5-star recruit just 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think that we're also kind of in that time of year where you're going to see guys go in the portal, and it's like, well, this is what their ESPN 300 ranking was, because there's not maybe a ton of snaps or a ton of production. And, I think that's also just the nature of this stuff now, truthfully, is like, okay, if you're going to recruit the portal every year and recruit at a high level, and you're going to always, Florida State has brought in new receivers every offseason. It's like the guys that just aren't working developmentally, you are constantly recruiting over them. And, eventually they're going to want a path to playing time. And so I think that's the case for Hakeem Williams. And, we saw Nitro Tuggle, the freshman from Georgia, go in the portal. And I know he got into trouble, but, I think those kinds of young players that were top recruits, Wendell Gregory went in for South Carolina. I think he'll be highly recruited. I think he may have just committed. I think those young, where's he going?
Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Oklahoma State's making some moves in the spring portal. I think those kinds of players, I still think there's a lot of upside there. And honestly, because of the portal, I think we end up in some situations sometimes now where a school's kind of giving up on a guy, and the next school's like, man, pretty lucky to have him.
Can you expand just a little on Oklahoma State being a bit aggressive here, Max? Because they're not a team that we've really needed to talk about a whole lot because of the way last year went. But it's clear that, man, this is a big year for that program to kind of get it right. What are your thoughts on how they've been reacting to the disappointment of last year?
Yeah, honestly, was just talking with an agent this morning who said he'd been to a spring practice there and thought that they're going to have a pretty good year, that they look really improved. I think Oklahoma State is way up there in terms of most snaps and starts added to the roster this year, this offseason. They've really trying to, obviously they flipped the entire coaching staff, but they're really trying to flip the roster as well. And so I like the pickup of Markel Samuel, the tackle from App State. I think he's someone that will be a plug and play starter for them. Wendell Gregory is a guy who he's also in our ESPN, our top 25 for the spring, but more of a developmental guy, a freshman who didn't play last year. But I think certainly the personnel staff, Mike Gundy is giving them room to go make a lot of moves this offseason, and I think it's going to be a very different looking team this fall, but maybe not in a bad way. I think can they be one of those teams that they certainly don't have Texas Tech money, but can they kind of moneyball their way into having a much improved team? I think it's going to be a pretty interesting experiment this fall for the folks.
Max Olson, ESPN.com. Max, enjoy the portal until we speak to you again. I hope you can escape for food and water.
I'm hoping to celebrate Easter, but we shall see.
Well, best of luck. Happy Easter. Thanks for
breaking news. Easter just entered the portal. Oh, no.
Yeah. Easter's in. All right, Max, have a good one. Thanks for hopping on. There you go. Max Olson of The Athletic with us here on 365 Sports.